Do you know what the biggest sex organ is? It's actually the one between your ears. It's your brain. So if you want greater sex, you have to have greater emotional connection. And today, that's exactly what we're hitting on from the Married Life Cruise. So let's jump into today's podcast.
Intimacy and sexual relation. And honestly, thinking about all of this stuff, it all connects, right? Your touch, tone, and timing, it matters. And the emotional relationship. And here's the thing. Your emotional intimacy lays the foundation for a healthy and fulfilling physical relation, right? When couples feel emotionally connected, they're more likely to experience deeper physical intimacy. And if you have deeper physical intimacy, you're more likely to have deeper emotional intimacy. Do you see the cycle? It all connects. If you don't, you cannot have one without the other. And so that's why when we go back to having sex once a year on your anniversary, I'm going to tell you right now, you do not have deep emotional relation with your spouse. I'm going to tell you right now, you can't talk me out of that. God created this. It is not just a physical thing, right? It is emotional. It's deeper than that. Adam and Eve were what? Naked and unashamed. And that was deeper than just physical, right? And so we have to understand that this is a cycle.
If it does become just the physical and not the emotional, that's prostitution. We're treating our wife or our husband like a prostitute.
Right.
Because you can sleep with a prostitute and get the sexual satisfaction, but you're not airing out your deep, dark secrets to a prostitute. You're not getting intimate with a prostitute. You know, you're not being vulnerable with a prostitute. So we cannot treat our spouse like a prostitute of, oh, I'm going to use you for your body. But when you ask me a deep question, I'm not going there. And us men, we can struggle with that, where we want to be like, no, I'm going to have it all together. When I have it all together, then I'll express that to you and I'll show you because I'm tough. I'm strong. Like, and Krissy has said this before. She's like, you are the sexiest when you are the most vulnerable, when you're the most transparent. Not when you're prideful, not when you're arrogant, not when you look like you have it all together.
Or trying to be sexy.
I just don't even know.
Okay, back to John Gottman. He's so good if you guys need help. He's just so good. It says couples who regularly build emotional connections through conversation, vulnerability, and shared experience often report more satisfying sexual relations. It's not just physical, it's a union of hearts. Jimmy Evans is another good one. He says emotional intimacy means being naked with your spouse, not just the physical, but the emotional. Sometimes that's harder to be emotionally naked than it even is to be physical, right? That's hard. I feel like even as a woman, that's hard sometimes because you don't know how your spouse is going to receive it, right? Because most of the time, you might not even know what to do. And so it's not necessarily looking for an answer, right? But it's just being emotionally.
You just sent me a reel the other day about the 4-H's.
That does.
Remember the 4-H's?
I remember the reel, but I don't remember what they are.
So it's this, when connecting emotionally, right? You know, like, so we use this phrase, but then we saw the 4-H's. But our phrase is that, like, is this a listen conversation or a fix it conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Because guys, we want to fix it, but sometimes she wants to listen. So the 4-H's were, is this like a hearing conversation?
Will it be fixed by hearing it? But I don't know the rest.
Oh,
I know the last one.
Hearing, helping. I forgot the third. So we'll just go with 3 H's or
humping. Sometimes we just need to hump it out. Write it down.
That's right.
Write it down.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean,
So the 3 H's, because I don't remember the other ones.
Go ahead with that.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I went to the Notre Dame game. I got to go to South Bend. And when I was going there, I told my brother months ago that I was going to be there and see if he wanted to get dinner or something. And so he's like, okay, cool, sounds good. Well, then I found out from another friend that he was actually going to the game. So, hey, I heard from a little birdie, you're going to be at the game. I was like, let's, meet up there. And long story short, he's like, okay, I'll text you when we arrive. And I'm watching the time. I'm like, okay, like as it's getting closer to game time, I was like, he has not texted me yet. So anyways, I text him, hey man, like I'm here. No response. And he's like, oh, hey, we're tailgating. I'm like, well, where at? No response. And I start, you can read between the lines, like, okay, he doesn't want to get together, which I understand because, again, like what Pastor Krissy shared Sunday at church, talk about like empathy. He's very hurt that my mom moved to California with us, that we're out here. My father recently passed away. My aunt, who was very close to him, recently passed away. He feels alone. So it's like, I'm not mad. I have empathy for him. But I'm like, but we're in the same spot and I haven't seen him in a while, And so I was just walking around the stadium and taking pictures and stuff. And I went, over by where Touchdown Jesus is. I'm in the stadium and overlooking and actually saw him and my sister-in-law and their friend and my nephew like walking. I started yelling to them and waving and everything. And they waved back and we texted, but we never got together that day. And I told Krissy, thank you, Evelyn. I told Krissy how that hurt me. But I'm not mad at him because I have empathy for where he's at. But still, I'm like, I kind of felt ignored, abandoned. Like, man, us moving to help people know Jesus, does it really deserve this kind of treatment? And I'm sharing that with you guys because this is what I share with my wife. Because that emotional connection of me being very vulnerable with her. Not just, oh yeah, it was good. I kind of waved to him. We saw each other. We text, whatever. But like, man, this hurt me. Sharing that with my spouse. Again, like what Jimmy Evans said, like getting naked emotionally, that can be hard for us to do. And so being able to share that with her and what that led to.
And that goes to our call to action for this one. Daily emotional check-ins. Like if you're able, right? My husband and I can like kind of text all day long. We can kind of like chat. You guys work together. We can make time during the day, but really an emotional check-in it's not extravagant. It's like 10 to 15 minutes. That story even that he just shared with me took a minute, right? But it's like 10 to 15 minutes each day to talk about how you're like emotionally doing. Because here's what'll happen. We think, oh, that's too much or that's extravagant. You take this away over 5, 10, 15 years, right? That's when you get, now your kids are gone. You don't know who this person is. And now you have the empty, what do they call it? Empty nest. Now you're empty nesters. And now I'm living with a stranger. But if you continually have those emotionally or daily emotional check-ins, year after year after year after year, it is going to build up. And you're going to know who your spouse is, right? That's the importance of it. Number 2, affection beyond the bedroom. I didn't mention this earlier, but knowing your spouse's love language. This is so simple and so important that if we overlook this, you're going to be so frustrated and you're going to put in so much time, work, and effort. And again, after that amount of time, you're going to be like, I've been putting all this work in and now they're like, they just overlooked all the things that I did for them. Well, you didn't love them the way that they needed to be loved. You loved them the way that you needed to be loved. 5 love languages, super simple, right? If you don't know yours, we could probably guess after our conversation. You don't have to read the book. You could take the test and probably guess after looking at them. That's not easy. This is like one of those things. It's not easy. My husband's love language is words of affirmation. Do you know what makes me the most uncomfortable? Words of affirmation. And so we've had to learn, like I've had to tell him, please do not say anything. Because mostly everything that comes out of his mouth about me is sexual anyways. So that's going to make me, like, I wore these pants. This is a side note. I wore these pants on Sunday. He smacked my butt. And because they're leather, not real leather, it was so loud. I was like, you can't do that. He was like, I know, I did it, and I'm so sorry. Like, and I didn't even turn around. I was so mad at him. And it was right after rally or something. I was like, oh my gosh, I was so embarrassed. But it was so embarrassing. I told him that night. He was like, I know, I'm so sorry. But if you, like, to me, it's doing the opposite. But for him, like, it makes me uncomfortable giving him words of affirmation out loud because it's me receiving it, it's just so awkward. But I need quality time. I hate gifts. I don't even know what I want. Don't buy me anything. Like, I don't even know. Okay. And so, like, he don't know if I don't know. And so, anyways, make your life simple by just learning this about your spouse, right? And then putting in the work, the focus there, right? And you're not going to be frustrated.
And then what he talks about, if you've read the book or, watched anything about the 5 love language, he then talks about having the conversation. We call it a marriage checkup. We'll talk about that more tomorrow or the next day. But Gary Chapman refers to it as, how's my love tank? How's your love tank? Is it full? Is it on half? Is it empty? Because again, it's not like it's never just like it's just full or empty. It could be half. Like, hey, you have been getting better at affirming me, or whatever it is, quality time, right? But if you don't know, if you're not keeping track, if you're not grading, scheduling, right, if you're not checking in, you might think you're killing it, and your spouse is like, I'm on E. So,
and you don't even know it.
And here's the thing, like, oftentimes we aren't taught this, how to have healthy conversations with our spouse of just saying, I want to make sure I'm serving you the best. And so we're going to have once a week a check-in of how's your love language. And like me and Krissy, we have this just like flat rule is, you guys have all heard it before. We have a counselor. And so it's like, if there's ever a time where I think we need to go see Judy and Krissy doesn't, we're going. And vice versa. If she thinks we need to go, but I don't, we're going. Because it's not about me. It's not about her. It's about two becoming one. And we want the team to win, not ourselves to win. And so that's where it gets to having these conversations of weekly, like, hey, how's your love language? Like, how's your love tank? Are you feeling loved?
Yeah.
All right.
So number 2 is affection beyond the bedroom, making sure that your spouse is feeling that. Because here's the thing, and I'll just be real with you. I had to have a conversation with my husband where he knew when it was that time of the month, and he wouldn't touch me. He wouldn't hug me. He wouldn't be physically affectionate to me, like non-sexually. And I was like, what? I'm just here. And I told him, I was like, I have noticed that if you think that we can't have sex, you don't even touch me. And so it was those real conversations where, like, I need to be non-sexually touched as well, but it doesn't always have to lead to that thing. And so these are real conversations that we have to have. I'm not mad about it. I didn't come and attack him. I just had to say, hey, listen, this is how I feel. You make me feel unwanted when we can't do X, Y, or Z, right? And so it's having those real conversations.
And I didn't know that. I wasn't even thinking of it. And so that's what's healthy about a relationship, where you can be honest with each other. Like, I was completely oblivious to that. And so now I make it a priority to make sure that I am being non-sexual, touching with her. Like, even last week, like, I just came behind and gave her a big hug, like, just trying to go above and beyond what that looks like.
Because I'll tell you right now, as a woman, it's confusing. And if you have kids, it's real confusing. Because I'm all touched out by like 3 p.m. Like, nobody touch me. Nobody pull on me. If you looking at the way, like, I'm all touched out. And so how confusing is that? It's like, wait, you want me to touch you? You don't want me to. Wait, what do you want me to do? And so it's like, I've had like very clear, you have to know, like, okay, what do I need? And I need to be very clear about it. I was like, I need a really long hug from you every once in a while. Keep it above the waist. Don't touch my butt.
Which is so hard to do. It's that sacrificial wife.
I just need a hug, right? And so, but I could see how that is very confusing to him when I'm like, don't touch me. No, I need you to touch me. No, don't touch me. You got to get it in before 3 p.m. He's like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? And so it's like having those clear expectations of like, but I need to know myself, right?
Yeah. Song of Solomon 1 verse 2, which is one of my favorite verses. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. If you guys have never read Song of Solomon over your wife, you should. I mean, it is poetry in motion, and it is going to get something else in motion.
I saw this. It was so funny. I saw this picture. It was how we see our wives, and then how like King Solomon sees his wife. And it was like rubies up her leg. It was like 2 fawns here. It was like 2 pomegranates here. It was just like this really weird picture. And that's how he describes his wife through poetry. It was hilarious.
I would say this as we're wrapping up. Ladies, sometimes you might feel like Krissy says she's not good with words of affirmation. But like Krissy will say like, oh, I look, fill in the blank. And I'll say, don't talk to my wife like that. Because again, thinking like how Song of Solomon is, like the way that I see her is different than she sees herself. And so I'm speaking life over her. And so husbands, it's speaking life. Like you love her smile, you love her eyes, you love, I tell her all the time, I was like, you got that hourglass shape, and it's like, you see, it's like that, like, but it's like, but I love you. I love all of this, about you. And so even when you're reading Song of Solomon, obviously the sexual parts, but the way he's describing her, he takes such time with her. And that's one of the things, like to do in your marriage, taking that time. So,
hey, if you want more help with your sex life, we have a free PDF guide below to have fun questions with your spouse. You can scroll right below, click it, get it for free now. And if you want to watch more videos on this, I'm going to have another link right here where you can go ahead, click it, and it's going to be more in-depth on sex, communication, and emotional trust. Go ahead and click that now, and we'll see you in the next video.